Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Life Unpotted. You're joined by me, Daisy, and Sophie today. And something that has been on my mind is the brevity of life and how quickly this life will pass us by. Really, the amount of time that has gone on and how short human life is, not to mention our individual lifespan is. And at first, I think that can be scary. I think at first that can be uncomfortable. But the more I sit with it, the more that I recognize that it's empowering to recognize that this life is so short and we know that. So it's being able to zoom out and ask the question of what do we care about? What is the main thing? Because we know that life is going to be challenging. We know life is a series of challenges. So what is something that excites us to time and time again come back to? What is that? And I was journaling, and I was just thinking about this morning. And I hadn't listened to the Casey Musgraves in a while, so I was listening to her. It was her 2015 album, one of her first big albums. And I was questioning, like, why am I enjoying this so much? Why do I like this so much? Why is it so appealing to me? And I answered the question for myself by saying, maybe it's because she's just being her. She's talking about her hometown. She's talking about how she didn't fit in. She's talking about how her experiences shaped who she is. So with that being said, is it the fact of what is worth it, what the main thing is, the main experience that is exciting to continuously come back to, is to just unapologetically be ourselves? And is that where the answers are to be found? When we're able to fully zoom out and recognize that our life is a mere shooting star, it's a short time span here. When we're able to zoom out to that extreme, we're able to, in a way, see how quickly this life will go by. So it's really questioning, how do I want to spend each moment? And what is the motivating factor behind each moment that, despite the difficulties, despite what the emotions tell me to do, despite all of these things, what makes it all worth it? What is the motivator? And that's a deep question, maybe one of life's deepest questions. But I think recently I've been reflecting on time and time management and how do I want to spend my time? Why do I not feel satisfied with the way I'm spending my time? And ultimately, is that because I have a desire to deeply fulfill whatever my potential is? And what is that potential if not trying to hone in and just be me at all times and not allow conditioning and all of these things that I thought I always was to come up and get in the way of me just existing within potential? Because when we can exist within potential, that's when we're able to fulfill our purpose? ? These are just thoughts that I'm having, and it's something I want to explore with you all today and with Sophie to understand, what is that thing that is worth it and exciting to come back to continuously after the challenge has faded?
This is going to be a good conversation. And I know that because purpose is something that I think we all think about, right? From the time we're born, we're put into life and we go about life and we're kind of going through the rhythms of life. And then we reach a point where we start, whether that's getting older or experiencing death or just waking up through some sort of life experience that shows us that we're not in control of life and that life happens. And at any given time, things can change. And that can bring us to a very existential, anxious question of, what am I doing here? And we were watching this documentary called Infinity on Netflix, and it definitely set me into an anxious spiral the other day, because basically they were going through the universe and how everything has always been here, exists in infinity, and in a very mathematic physics standpoint. And basically they concluded that, okay, maybe one day the sun will blow up, the earth will blow up, everything will cease to exist. And that made me feel really scared. Like, honestly, it made me feel really anxious. I was also dealing with a lot of emotions that day. So it's interesting to see how the emotions I was experiencing shaped my experience watching that, because sometimes I feel comforted or knowing that, okay, I do feel so connected to everything. I feel so connected to this experience that I'm not scared about not existing because I know that I am everything. And then there are times where I am so caught up in myself and I am so caught up in thinking about myself and overthinking and thinking about the future that I lose that sense of connection from the world, from the universe, from recognizing that we are all the same. We're all going through this human experience together in the capacity as a human being. And with that being said, after watching this documentary, I was left in a place of, I feel anxious about thinking about billions and billions and billions of years about the sun potentially blowing up. And I went down that path for a while feeling anxious until I kind of paused and came back and was like, okay, there's no utility here for me to worry about billions of years of potentiality that may not occur and that no one knows will occur. And obviously that's unsettling because like the core concept that we talk about on this podcast is that it brings up uncertainty. It brings up the uncertainty of the future. And we could talk about the uncertainty of the future talking about 100 billion years away, or we could talk about it tomorrow, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow, not knowing what we're doing with our life. And I think that just brings us back to this question of, okay, if we don't know how tomorrow is going to unfold, if we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the next day or for the rest of eternity, what do I want to do with this life? What is it that I care about? And I think it's a really great question and one that I'm excited to delve into. And I will respond by saying, for me, I'm realizing that I think purpose can exist in two parts. And I think number one, it can be easy to overthink purpose, thinking that it's more than just merely existing. So this is when we put so much pressure on, I need to have a purpose. I need to find something externally that will internally fulfill me. And as we've been on this journey really of trying to understand, is it our external world or is it our internal world that gives us the ability to experience this life? And what I've concluded time after time again is that it is my internal world, always. It always comes back to how much am I connected to myself? So we can have that foundation, but we can also understand that external connections, when we're connecting with other people or we're really engaging in things and activities that light us up, it really does make me come back to this point of, I think we do intrinsically, we can enjoy things and we are able to enjoy certain things maybe more than other people, in the sense of some people enjoy certain things more than others. I'm passionate about podcasting. Someone might be passionate about sports, right? It's just a matter of what medium are you expressing yourself? And I think for me, to start, I would say purpose for me has come down to expression of myself and connection with others. And perhaps that vehicle of expression becomes really just a medium for connection, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I like how we kind of said a similar thing, but came to a similar conclusion. Like kind of what you were saying around it's all about your inner world. Because yeah, there could be someone who every day of their life, they're a carpenter and they work on perfecting something with carpentry. And that could be something that is so fulfilling. That could be something that is purposeful because, again, going back to what I was originally saying, time and time again, I'm sure there's challenges that arise within trying to achieve this perfection or whatever it may be within carpentry. But the outcome is what makes the pursuit worthy. So it's not just the outcome that purpose is coming from. It's the pursuit that purpose is coming from. It's the pursuit of when you have a sharp knife that goes dull and you no longer have a knife and you have to figure out some other piece of equipment to use to make the carpentry more smooth or whatever it may be. Instead of getting turned away or turned off or being like, oh, like carpentry's not for me, instead you say, I'm excited to innovate and to figure out how I can proceed on this journey of becoming an excellent carpenter, because this is something that makes me feel fulfilled. So to put an example to the point of what is it that is exciting to come back to after the challenge has come to completion? Because you could look at all purposes and remove the unique component of whether it's podcasting or carpentry or sports, And what you're going to have is persistence to continue on despite challenge. So to bring it back to this point of we are in a place of infinity, is the universe infinite? Things that we haven't answered, just theorized about. Doesn't it just matter what is happening in this moment? Shouldn't you just find ways to enjoy this moment? And that doesn't necessarily mean this is the best moment ever, but it's staying on track. Instead of saying, I'm bored of working on this carpentry piece, or my hands are tired, my back is tired, it's finding some sort of motivation to keep going despite the aches, despite the pains, despite the discomfort, despite your mind telling you to stop. Is that where joy is found? Is in a pursuit toward something, but finding complete, and I mean complete and total satisfaction with this moment. So it's almost like a contradictory point that you are so focused on the outcome, to pushing yourself to achieve an outcome, that the outcome does no longer exist because you're so focused on this moment and not faltering to go and watch TV and give up when things get hard, but continuing to push through even when things are hard, because there is an inherent satisfaction with that. So I bring all of this up because I wonder on this journey where through the podcast, through building this brand, where am I going? Does it matter where I'm going? Or does it matter that despite not knowing, and despite thinking, is this bad? Despite thinking, do I know what I'm doing? Despite thinking there's not enough time, despite thinking time is something that I don't have enough of, despite getting angry, it's pushing all of these things to the side, parting through all of the clouds, all of the musk around me that's telling me to quit. It's saying, but what if? What if we try this instead? Okay, I'm actually going to put pen to paper and I'm going to try this. Despite the fear, anxiety, all of these things my mind tells me, I'm going to keep trying to innovate and change and learn from my failures, or learn from the things that don't work out and use them as boosters instead of weights that pull me down and don't let me continue to go through this journey. So it's just interesting because life is just a series of challenges. And I guess in a way it's coming back to, how are we reacting to these challenges? Are we letting them excite us and find ways to move beyond despite the challenges? Or are we letting them pull us down and not move forward and not learn and not grow? That's where my mind's at.
Well, it's funny because you were like, okay, where am I going? The question, right? Always, what am I striving for? Where am I going? When will I get to a point where maybe I can relax? When will I get to a point where I feel like I'm satisfied? When will I get to a point where it feels like this is worth it? When will I arrive?
Were you going to say that we have arrived?
Yeah, of course, because this is it, right? The maximum enjoyment that you can reach. Okay, let's think about life's enjoyment as a threshold, right? It exists kind of on a continuum. So you have the lowest level is you're in extreme resistance, you're just angry all the time, whatever. And the end of the spectrum is true relaxation, letting go, accepting, and being here. The scale ends at being here, right? Like, this is what I don't think we understand, and this is what I struggle to understand a lot of the time, is that we can't go any further than being here. We can't go any further than continuously relaxing into this experience. So when we think about where am I going, we forget that we don't go anywhere externally. We just go inside of us. We go inward and we continuously find the ability to enjoy what is happening in every single moment. And that, yes, okay, so let's give the example, right? I'm pursuing my dreams of podcasting, building this brand, venturing into the mindfulness space, getting to know more people, right? So we can think about, okay, I'm on this journey. And yes, I will continue to meet more people. And yes, we will continue to evolve. And yes, we'll continue to external things will come to which we can enjoy. But this conversation right now is it. This is the maximum now you could ever be in, because there will never be another moment that is more fulfilling than now. It is our ability, okay, this is where it's really important. It is our ability to learn how to enjoy the now, which is so hard for our brain to comprehend because evolutionary, we are always driven to the future. We're always trying to achieve. We're always trying to protect ourselves for so many different reasons, right? So this is where we really work with what we talk about in this podcast, is coming back to what is unfolding right here, right now, in this very moment. To the listener, what can you see? What can you experience? And this is where it's like we could spend our whole life literally not experiencing your life, because we get to 70 years old. It's like you're on the hamster wheel, you're trying to get to the place, You realize that life was a continuous journey of getting to places. But all you were doing when you were getting to a place was continuously being in this moment. There's no other moment except right now. So what causes conflict? Resistance, expectation, reactivity. So to go back to the question of purpose, if we don't have this base state of enjoying this very moment, if we don't have the core foundation of the cake, how are we going to be able to top it off with toppings? Because if we're always striving to top off a cake that doesn't exist because you don't have the concrete foundation, you're striving, but you're never actually experiencing. So that's the very nuanced balance of, can I strive? Can I be motivated? Can I be inspired? Can I feel passionate? But can I feel relaxed while doing all of that? Can I recognize that that is just for fun? Because my truest enjoyment, my truest capacity to enjoy life has already happened. Okay, great. We're here now. What? Okay, let's have fun. So we don't have to stress about it. And we don't have to worry about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it made a lot of sense. And I just drew like an infographic explaining it because it was funny. I was beginning to draw the infographic and then you mirrored what I was drawing, which was weird. But it's almost like a relaxed state is the antithesis to an anxious state. And the way we get from an anxious state to a relaxed state is to swap these two out. But the question is, how do we get there? And it's almost like one is action, but not even physical action, but it's like mental action. And it's also immersion. And I wrote that down because this morning, I was having an anxious spiral in my mind of like, what am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? And sure, there was a little resistance to podcast, but as soon as I took action and got immersed within this conversation, I went from an anxious state to a relaxed state. So that's why I said action and immersion. That can be taken the wrong way, but it's for your mind to be within action, focused, immersed within something, because that's what is allowing me to be in a relaxed state, is the fact that I'm so focused now on this conversation that I don't have to worry about this being a good conversation. And
bingo.
So call it what you want, call it flow state. But I would say when you're building a business or you're writing an album, maybe it's not the Grammy or maybe it's not the IPO, maybe it's not these things that you're striving for, but it's just the relaxed state that you are in when you are flowing and when you are truly creating. Maybe the biggest goal we can always have, or the biggest wish, desire, purpose we can have, is to just constantly be in a flow state, to be in a relaxed state of just enjoying the moment, of knowing that no matter where we're going to get, my cadence just totally changed. That no matter where we're going to get, it doesn't matter, because it's the journey, it's the experience that we are having in this moment that is infinitely enjoyable. Because sure, tapping out of it, tapping back into it, tapping out of it, like that's life. But back to what I said originally, what is something that is worthwhile that you are so excited to come back to time and time again? And for me, it is flow, but it doesn't even matter what that flow is, what it is within. Maybe it's podcasting, maybe it's writing, maybe it's cooking. There's so many ways for us to find flow. But all that matters is that we do let go and we do live in a relaxed state. But why don't we live in a relaxed state, Sophie? Why don't we?
Well, that's actually what I was going to want to talk about next is what's happening when we're not relaxed. What are we doing? And it's a word we haven't revisited in a while, but it's a very important word. It's control. We're trying to control every single thing happening to the point where we started this podcast earlier and Daisy's like, I have to nanny. Like, can we start going? Like, just trying to control so much that control, what you're doing is you're hitting your head against the wall. You're hitting your head against the wall. You're creating a problem that doesn't exist. And why? I realized this the other day. We took a very small amount of mushrooms, like very small amount, like 0.25. And I noticed that combined with this existential dread I've had throughout my life, and like going back to being a kid and being scared to go to sleep because I was scared I was going to die in my sleep. I think I have such a fear of, I don't know if it's death, but I have some fear that comes back to, I have such a fear of letting go of control because basically when we're talking like this, you're not thinking. So really it's a kind of a vulnerable state to be truly relaxed in the moment because when you surrender, you're letting go of control. And I just want to really emphasize that it's uncomfortable to do that for me personally, because I think I'm scared. It's like you're walking on a tightrope, right? And it's like, I keep looking down, I keep looking to the right, keep looking to the left, because I'm so scared to just walk the tightrope. Why? Because of the possibility I might fall. I think we're always so scared of something happening that we're always grasping for some control. And when we're grasping for control like this, and we're like going over there and pulling the rope and pulling the rope, we don't realize that beneath us is a beautiful pile of grass or something that will catch us. And basically, that perceived height we have, thinking we're 100 feet up on the tightrope, we're actually already on the ground. But what makes us feel like we're high up is this fear that comes up that something's wrong, that something is wrong. And this is where it gets to the point of, okay, you're getting scared, you're going to be late to the office. You're getting scared, you're going to be late to the meeting. 5 minutes late. Let's just say you're 5 minutes late, right? That disproportionate fear that becomes fight or flight, life or death, when in reality, everything is okay. And again, we have to train our minds, and this is where the mind-body connection becomes so important, is that we're continuously coming back to our bodies and saying, hey, okay, we're safe right now. The thought up here doesn't make sense. There's nothing to worry about. I'm going to let go. But when we let go, we don't think about letting go because, again, we're in the thought. So I've been really wanting to talk again about this like tendency to want to control everything in life. We're trying to control minute to minute to minute. We're grasping to control. And that's where we live in this very stiff, rigid way where you think about someone who's like gets home and start dancing, they put it on music, and they're like enjoying their post-work day, or in the morning they're dancing, they're having fun, versus you come home, you're closed, you're rigid, you go sit on the couch, you just like, no one is doing that except you. You are closing, you're keeping yourself closed, and therefore you're keeping yourself stuck in this resistance control state. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that when we're trying, it is this false desire to want to control, thinking it's possible to have control, when in reality, we cannot control anything in life beyond being in this moment time after time again. That doesn't mean we can't work towards things and we can't have an impact of the energy we're putting out into the world, to the universe, but we don't know where things will go. We never know. And if there's anything this journey has taught us, is that for life to unfold, you cannot create it. You cannot create the path in which your life goes. You surrender to the path in which life takes you. And then you watch it perfectly align. Michael Singer surrender experiment. That's all that is. It's being here.
To go back to my early on question in this conversation of asking, what is our purpose if our time here is so short? What is our purpose? What if our purpose is just simply existing outside of the mind? If it is just simply existing in this moment, no matter where you're at. The classic example of it's New Year's Day, and you're like, oh my gosh, like I wanna work out more, I wanna eat healthier, I wanna lose weight, I wanna gain muscle, the list goes on forever. All of these things that you find yourself at the bottom of the cup and you wanna get to the top of it. What if, just what if, in that moment where you're in the bottom of the cup, you are able to say, right, but the point isn't to get caught up just in my thoughts. The point isn't just to think, right, once I eat better, once I work out more, once I move my body more, etc., things will be fixed, because that's not the truth. What if you can recognize it's great that I want to do those things and I'm excited to see my progress with those things, but what about doing one workout right now? Or what about reading a book about understanding what should I be eating and losing yourself in the moment of both of these activities that actually start now? Because it's interesting what we will do to avoid the present moment. We will get fixated on thinking, once in the future, once I go from eating like junk to eating 100% natural, blah, 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 whatever that is, everything will be better. Well, how are you going to get there? What's the journey to getting there? The journey to getting there is losing yourself in the present moment and finding joy, not even finding joy, but just finding something in the moment that brings you into the moment, that helps you enjoy it. And on this point of rigidity, Sophie, like, it's really interesting how, I spent a lot of my life like this, like rigid, trying to control and force things to happen because I wasn't able to get out of the thought. I wasn't able to get out of the mind. And if we're doing that, we're never actually living. That's the point that I'm realizing, is that I introed this conversation by asking, if life is infinite, if the earth, if space, if all of this is infinite, how do we want to spend our time? And is that simply just to live? Going back to the internal experience, is it focusing on our internal experience more than anything else? And upon focusing fully on our internal experience, will that manifest an exciting external experience because we're putting our internal experience first, as opposed to oftentimes where rigidity comes in, we think, once I make a certain amount of money, once I own a house, once I have 2.5 kids, everything, I can design it to be perfect, and I have to be rigid and I have to be controlling, because that is when I'll get happiness. That is when I'll be relaxed, and that is when I'll be happy. But you get there and you realize your internal state is a mess, and you're like, wow, all the rigidity, all the control, all the anger outbursts, all of that was my experience getting me to this point. And now that I'm at this point, I'm feeling maybe worse because I'm recognizing that didn't save me. So it's like, start when you're at the bottom of the cup and you're looking upwards to want to fill the cup. Start with focusing on your internal experience and your internal world. And that just means like sitting down and looking around your room and observing, how does my dresser make me feel? How does that picture on the wall make me feel? And we're going to project how we're feeling onto those things. Then it's like shutting your eyes for 5 seconds or 10 seconds or a minute and just letting things settle, letting go, trying to just not think or observe the thoughts. That's probably easier. And then open our eyes back up. Now look at the dresser. Look at the picture on the wall. Okay. Has your perspective of these things changed? Maybe a little bit, because your inner world changed because you went from the mind to the body, or you took the thoughts at less face value because you observed them. Like, that's the example of why to focus on the inner world before your external world, because your inner world builds your external world.
Circling back, that your inner world is your external world because there is no separation. And what I was thinking about when you're saying all that is when you're tapped into flow state, meaning you're relaxed, you're not thinking about yourself. Like, you're just not thinking about you and your relationship to this world and what something means about you and what someone's thinking about you and what someone's going to think about you in the future and what this is going to mean. And if you're late, what they're going to think and they're going to judge. And it's just that story, the constant mind chatter of constantly analyzing how I'm doing in every single moment, what this means. And When we stop doing that, when we let go of needing to analyze and comment and worry, constantly narrating every single second of this life, and instead we choose to experience it, think about those days where you come home so refreshed. It's almost like you were in flow state the whole 9 hours. You weren't thinking, you were doing. We forget how to do. And this is to circle back to what you're saying there originally in the conversation. Ultimately, this is a state that we do reach by on our own, meaning every state that we reach is something that we are doing. But yes, there can be tools out there that help facilitate that. Like, for example, to the listener, think of a time where you felt so free and relaxed. Maybe that's a Saturday morning when you wake up and go to the farmer's market. Maybe that's when you go see your parents. Maybe that's when you take your dog for a walk. Maybe it's when you're at the beach. Maybe it's when you're in the forest. And I think what happens is we start to think, I can only feel those states when I'm doing those activities, but all you're doing in those activities is giving yourself permission to not worry, to not think, and to not ruminate. If you go play Frisbee with your friends, you're probably having so much fun because you're playing Frisbee with your friends. So why aren't we sitting at the computer typing? Why aren't we working on the thing we need to work on? Because we're fixated so much about the fact that we don't want to be doing what's actually unfolding. And it is literally so simple when we get to this point. And again, I haven't had these thoughts in a while now, so it's not that simple because we have to get lost in it to get to this point of clarity. And mind you, if you listen to the other day's episode, like I was processing a lot of feelings. And this is where I think feeling becomes something that is always in tandem to experiencing. Because when we start to have this buildup of a feeling that we haven't processed, it takes us further and further and further away from experiencing. So if we're going to give any sort of formula for how to enjoy life and maybe finding our purpose, it's feeling when you need to feel, processing when you need to process, and doing all that so that you do have the capacity to be here and to exist.
Well, upon you saying all of that, I realized all the anxiety, all the thoughts. I've been thinking so much about Life Unpotted versus just being within it, just doing it. And last night we had a discussion of like, okay, we need to be a week just ahead. We need to have some episodes so we're not just like burning the candle at both ends, and we have some time to have a break. Not that we're stopping, but just to be a week ahead, so that we can focus on future planning and growing and so on. But it's interesting because in order to do that, we're going to podcast 4 days in a row so that we can get ahead, and then we can continue to have this momentum where we're a week ahead. Well, we don't usually podcast the day we do release. So today's Tuesday, we released, but we also are recording. And let me tell you, the momentum, it already feels good because one thing about podcasting is it forces you into flow. So I'm realizing I was like, we have to do this morning, so on and so on. But it's something that forces you from mind, thought, to experience, to feeling, because you're preoccupied with something. So it's just, that is also an equation. If you are so anxious about something, whether it be calculus homework, to whether it be an assignment for work or a presentation that's coming up or a side project you're working on, instead of worrying about it, just take action and create something for it, even if you never even use what you make. It's all about just taking action, because that's always going to be what leads us to being here now in this moment.
And taking action requires us to understand that we don't need to be perfect in the action we're taking. There is no pressure for us to take this action in any certain way. There is no pressure for us to perform in any certain way, because when we let go on thinking that every single consequence has this huge disproportionate bearing on our life, that if I'm 15 minutes late, it's over. I'm a failure. This sucks. And when we are not thinking so black and white, and we recognize that all of that is product of the mind, all of that is the story we're telling ourselves. None of that exists right now. And when we're in that future thinking mind, when we're getting in the car, going to work, and we're not there yet, so we're worrying about getting there, where are we? Because we're certainly not in the moment of just experiencing what it means to be holding the steering wheel. We're already 5 steps ahead of us. We're already thinking about what is your boss going to say when you get there. And then you get to work and your boss is not even there because they went and got their coffee and they're at their meeting, right? It's like that's happened to me so many times. And it's so easy to forget that the story that we're creating about what's unfolding does not depict what's unfolding. So if I want to sit here and worry about the sun blowing up, okay, great. Well, if I look outside, the sun's here right now. So how can we ever be sure about what will unfold? How can we ever be sure about what's happening right now? How can we ever be sure when we have minds that can only perceive 20 or so percent of reality that this is just this crazy, beautiful experience that we're all existing? Can we have some fun with it? Can we have some damn fun with it, knowing we weren't here at some point, or maybe we've always been here? Maybe we don't know, and maybe that's okay. And maybe the purpose is to not know. Maybe the purpose is to stop trying to find a purpose, is to stop trying to seek answers and recognize that purpose is in this experience. It's in letting go and being yourself in whatever capacity that means. And being yourself happens when we're not thinking. So it's all connected. You see the circle that everything that needs to occur naturally occurs when you let go. There's nothing we have to figure out. Let life do the rest.
Absolutely correct, Sophie. Very true. It's so funny because it's the art of conversation has nothing to do with an equation. The art of conversation has everything to do with getting lost in it, into falling into nooks and crannies that you probably wouldn't otherwise fall into if you were too concerned about following a script, or if you were too concerned about making sure you hit certain topic of conversation. It's like fully surrendering and letting go and just having so much fun in the conversation. And this is just making me excited because I'm just thinking about this because we want to have a bunch of guests on, and I'm not going to get into this, but it's the new project. And I'm just really excited to branch out and just practice this in ways that maybe would make me anxious in the past. But it's all about letting go of the things that make us anxious and instead taking action and getting immersed and enjoying the moment. Because like you said, Sophie, there is no perfect way to do anything. What is the quote? Perfection is the enemy of outcome. I don't know. I just made that up. But it's like enemy number one is perfection, because that's going to stop you from doing anything. And that's going to stop you from taking action. It's going to keep you in your mind. It's going to keep you stuck. So throw perfection out the window and have fun. I think we get so sold this idea of rigidity and control is how we have success. But I'm just not on board with that, because we lose sight of this moment. And like Eckhart Tolle said, the power of now. The power of now is real, man. Like really experiencing this moment is real. So to sign off and to ask the listener, what is your experience right now in this moment? Can you question what your experience is? Are you immersed in the moment, or are you worried about something? And I think if you answer, I'm worried about something, it's time to immerse yourself in something.
And it's like, what is your experience right now? We might have to peel back a few layers of, okay, what is the story my mind's telling me? What's happening right now? Versus what's really happening. And what that's going to lead us down is a path of a bunch of uncertain answers of, I don't know what any of this means. I have no idea what this lunch I'm about to have with my friend, or this coworker I'm meeting up with, or any of this stuff means. I have no idea what going on that walk means, what it might implicate, what it might impact in the greater scale of life. I have no idea, when we don't think about just ourselves, me going to that coffee shop, how that might impact someone else's day. The way I let go, how that might impact someone else's day. And purpose, what I've been thinking about is, if I can just do anything to help other people enjoy this life and put a smile on someone's face and help people feel seen and loved, that's all I want to do. And that's enough for me. If we're all just here existing, we all have no idea what's going on. If I could just be myself or show myself or do something or not think about myself in a way that someone else can just feel love. The most powerful emotion, that when you're experiencing love, it doesn't matter if you know the sun's going to blow up. Like Everywhere, Everything by Noah Khan, like the song of like two teenagers just living this life so immersed in life that they don't know the sun's about to come crashing on them, and it doesn't matter, because love, peace, beauty, these beautiful emotions are so profoundly real that that's what's real. And we can sit here and debate, is any of this real? Well, I'm pretty certain that love is real, because it's a beautiful feeling that I feel so often for everyone around me, for myself, for Daisy, for everyone. And of course, I ebb and flow in and out of that. But where I always come back to is here. And this moment is nothing but love. Because when we're connected to ourselves, we're connected to reality, we're connected to this experience, and we're connected to others. And what more to life do we want than that? So I'm excited to be podcasting more, because when we are immersing ourselves more, it's when we're able to have conversations that we didn't even know. This box of conversation, we didn't come here knowing this would open up. This is the art of life. This is the art of letting go, of realizing that there's so much potential is existing in every single moment. Are we going to allow ourselves to tap into it? Is really what's going to happen. Is really what the question is. AKA, are we going to allow ourselves to be okay with not knowing and try it out and see where it goes? So thank you to the listener. I am feeling pretty damn inspired, and I hope you are too. That's the point of this podcast, to feel seen, to feel connected, and to recognize that we're meant to have fun here. So whatever that means for you, I hope that you're able to find it within yourself, to surrender, to let go, and to immerse yourself in whatever is unfolding. Hope everyone has a beautiful weekend, being exactly where they need to be, and we'll talk to you guys on Tuesday.